One of my favorite parts about Morrowind's character experience is the many different equipment slots that we're able to fill with various pieces of gear, 18 different slots in all. Much more versatile than the 10 in Oblivion or the 7 used in Skyrim. Now, I've shown you lots of great things to shove in most of these slots already, but our journey today will lead us to some wonderfully overpowered overcoats, and thanks to one of my favorite mods, the unique finery replacer, they'll have snazzy custom models to really help you stand out in a crowd. All 3 of the rare robes requiring requisition are great house quest targets, 1 each for Hlaalu, Redas, and Telvanni respectively. That of course means that someone else is supposed to end up with the robes, but thankfully we don't have to be on any of the particular quests in order to get our hands on the goods. I'll still give you a brief overview of each quest, just know that they're not required if you only want to go clothes shopping. The first robe on our rack today comes to our attention during a dubious dose of House Hlaalu Hullabaloo, the Control the Ordinators quest, given by Duke Vedamdrin himself. Apparently, he's not a fan of the level of zeal, or possibly fanaticism, with which the Ordinators perform their duties, and he has a sneaky little plan to get them to release the collective cojones of the Hlaalu Council so they can continue their completely legitimate business activities that are definitely not fronts for any sort of criminal enterprises within the Duke of Ardenfel's own family or anything, allegedly, in my opinion.
There's a perfectly good explanation for this, I assure you.
But if government officials aren't really your speed, how about the arch-canon, Tholer Sarioni, of Sarioni's sermons fame? The Duke feels that Sarioni is a reasonable mer, and they should be able to come to some understanding about what role the Ordinators should play in house business. It would seem that he has good instincts, as the arch-canon is willing to negotiate, but as with any completely legitimate business activities, we need to do him a favor first. The Ordinators recently took a big L in a nearby smuggler's den turned 6 house base, Asimanu. 3 of them entered the cave and never returned. Oh well, right? Surely the Temple of the Living Gods can replace a trio of C-tier beat cops without much fuss, right? While I applaud your cutthroat managerial approach, the 3 Stooges themselves aren't what has the previously peaceful Patriarch perturbed. As we've seen in places like Kogarun and Degathur, Ordinators have a nasty habit of marching into battle with ancient and priceless relics of the Rothis saints, then quickly dying to the first strong breeze that hits them, and Asimanu is no different. The cave itself is located west of Vivek's Hlaalu Canton, roughly equidistant between Ebonheart and Seydanine on the small island near the remote shipwreck. Inside, we're met with the Descent, a Corpus creature, and a crossroads. Directly across the gap is the shrine's back door, locked at level 35. But if we instead head to the right, we'll find an ash slave and a bit of a drop-off. Be sure to bring some levitation options, as this isn't the only place that you'll need it in here. After dropping down and continuing north, we'll come upon another ash slave, with an ash zombie not far behind. Once they're dealt with, we can turn our attention to the non-ash-based corpse on the ground.
He's already dead!
This is the first of the ill-fated but accurately named dead Ordinators. He's missing most of his equipment and all of his health, but feel free to take what he has left. In this same room is a small ramp leading up the north wall to a hidden alcove. In here, we'll find the second dead Ordinator.
Failure is your destiny.
Who has a similar assortment to the last one, but with the addition of an old key that we'll need to continue our journey. After dispatching of a few stragglers, we can head west through the next room and around a large bend. Then it's a straight run south to the other end of the cave. Around the next corner will be a tentacle-faced ash ghoul standing over the corpse of dead Ordinator III.
You disrespect yourself and your nation.
Again, with very little remaining of his armor. Just past the next room is a doorway leading into the shrine. In here, we'll find another lame corpus, who isn't very cool, but the Frost Atronach we find in the next chamber certainly is. At first glance, this appears to be a dead end, but there's a ledge we can levitate up to that leads into another passageway. Down here will be 5 dreamers, one of whom has a rusty key, so be sure to check their pockets, or wherever belligerent naked cultists keep their belongings.
Your buttocks. That's nature's pocket.
If the big black and red braziers didn't give it away, we're approaching the end of the dungeon. The 6th house bells and banners should likewise be a good sign that it's a less than pleasant one. Up the path at the back is Dagoth Leivul getting up to some 6th house shenanigans. Be sure to grab his amulet to sell later, and the bell hammer if you like. Then, break out your levitation one last time and head for the narrow ledge above the bells. This leads to a trapped chest, locked at level 75. It opens with the rusty key, and inside we'll find some gold and a potion. But more importantly, the Robe of St. Rothis. St. Rothis the Martyr is the Dunmeri patron saint of furnishers and carabiniers, and was killed by Argonian sorcerers when he refused to recant his faith in the tribunal, which led directly to the Arnesian War, but that's a tale for another day. His robe was blessed by his blood and now carries a restore fatigue and health enchantment for 15 points per cast, which isn't massive, but it is extremely handy in a pinch. Despite its religious significance, the robe's appearance itself is our most subtle of the day. However, our next robe is much more ostentatious. Our second robe comes to us as one of 3 unique items from the creatively named House Redarin quest, Redas' Tomb. This mission occurs very early on in the questline if you start out in the Vivek office of the faction. Pharaoh Rethrin will inform the player that the last living member of the Redas family has donated the family's few remaining possessions to House Redarin, the Redas Chalice and War Axe, and the Redas Robe of Deeds, and it's up to us to recover the artifacts and return them to Faral and Vivek. The enemies encountered will be leveled Daedra, so I highly recommend doing this dungeon early and often, as the robe is extremely useful to players of any level and just about any build. It's so good, in fact, that unlike other robes in this video, the Robe of Deeds will be returned to the player upon completion of the Redarin questline. We'll take a look at why this robe is so amazing in a few minutes, but first, I should tell you where it is. The Redas ancestral tomb is nestled away just beyond the hills south of Molag Mar, so catch a silt strider and make your way down to the Molag Mar region. Despite this being a short distance, there is quite a bit of verticality in the approach, so I recommend levitation here as well. Upon reaching the tomb and descending the staircase, we'll find ourselves in the first chamber, face to face with the leveled Daedra. This room branches off to the north, which is only necessary if you're doing the quest, as the axe can be found back here, past several more leveled Daedra, and it isn't exactly the most powerful war axe around. The robe itself, and the chalice as well, will be located in the room to the east from the initial area. Beyond the door, we'll find one final level Daedra and an ash pit holding our prize. The Redas Robe of Deeds carries 2 constant effects, Feather for 50 points and Detect Animal for 25 feet. The first effect is useful almost all the time, and while the second is more niche, it will come in handy in places like Solstheim at night. Last but not least, we have another fantastic robe belonging to the House Telvanni questline. The Venerable Master Neloth requests that you go compliment Sinise Thendo, a servant of Archmagister Gothrin, on her lovely Robe of the Drake's Pride, and ask ever so nicely if he could borrow it. Now, if you're familiar with Master Neloth or how the Telvanni operate in general, you probably figured out that that's not at all what we're asked to do. Instead, Neloth is pouting that Sinise is not qualified to wear such a fine robe, and of course, he would be a far more worthy bearer. Keep in mind that Neloth is generally wholeheartedly opposed to stooping so low as to speak to commoners, showing just how badly he wants that robe. Once you've been assigned your chore, it's off to the docks for a quick boat ride across the bay from Sadrith Mora to Sinise in the Teleroon living quarters in nearby Teleroon, where she can be found in the middle level of the Mushroom Tower. If you're coming in from above, you'll need to descend 1 level to the lower floor, then Sinise can be found down the western corridor. She has a few interesting enchanted pieces on the table, including a couple of robes, but the one we're after is currently being worn by Sinise, leaving only one sure way to retrieve it. She isn't alone, so stealth kills are likely out of the question, and if you're a member of House Telvanni, you'll be expelled for killing her in cold blood. I'll be using the crude but effective method of spam taunting until she gets sick of my shit and attacks. If you're actually on the quest and get expelled for killing Sinise, Neloth will acknowledge that he caused you some problems and reinstate you, which is about the most generous thing I've ever seen him do. Expelled or not, he only gives you 10 gold for your trouble, which is much more on brand for Neloth, so just keep the robe instead. Like most spellcasters, if you can get in close early on and strike quickly, Sinise will be down before she's able to do much damage, and we will find ourselves in possession of the fantastic Robe of the Drake's Pride, granting a triple constant effect of Fortify Intelligence 10 points, Resist Fire 25%, and Reflect 25%, making it one of the absolute best clothing items in the game. These robes will bring some much needed utility to an underserved equipment slot, and if you're using the unique Finery Replacer mod, link in the description of course, they'll make you the envy of all the Enwas and Swits. Be sure to let me know in the comments what your favorite Morrowind robe is, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a video. Special thanks goes out to our channel members Quentin Paulson and OM James for their ongoing support. Until next time, I've been GetShiver. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later!